4 years. What's different today? 4 years sober. What's different? Today we're talking about creating teachable moments through acceptance and tolerance in unfortunate situations. In my early recovery, around 2 years, I was experiencing some good life experiences, and my sobriety was thriving. But I also was having issues with being agitated, being angry, not letting things go. And one thing I realized, I was kind of being hypocritical, and sometimes, not all times, but sometimes. And I was doing a lot of preaching about the 12 steps in recovery. I was kind of like an AA Nazi somewhat. And I realized that through doing my daily inventory, I was actually very often not practicing what I preached. And so what I adopted, a commitment in my life that if I was going to continue to make the growth in my recovery, that what I would need to do is I would need to start walking the walk and talking. I would need to start walking the walk if I was going to continue to keep talking the talk. Because if you're talking the talk and not walking the walk, you are not legit. And that is not recovery. That is not rehabilitation. So here's the circumstance. I'll try to make it brief. This is how I learned how to apply tolerance and acceptance, and specifically acceptance. So I was in Santa Barbara. I went to fill my tank because I was going to drive home. And I'd been doing some mountain bike riding up there. And also there was another event that I went to. And my card was declined when I tried to use the card to get some gas. So I checked my bank balance and it was below negative. And so I called the bank to find out what was going on. And it turns out that I had lien put on my account from the state of California. And so B of A withdrew all the money. And then they also charged like about $100 service charge. So not only did Bank of America take all the money out, but they had to, because it was by law. They were required to, because it was a legal lien, and it was by the state of California. So they added $100 fee. So that created an NSF on a couple other transactions. So I ended up having a couple $100 in NSF transactions. But here's my dilemma, is that this is early recovery, and my credit wasn't good, so I didn't have any credit cards. So I was living on just using cash. So I'm stuck with an empty tank on the weekend. I got no money. And Bank of America basically just, I was very mad back then. I was saying that they screwed me, but it was just poor timing that I happened to be out of town. And so subsequently, what I ended up doing is panhandling for a few hours and getting money. But I was so angry and so mad and so offended that this happened that it bothered me for a couple weeks. And I ended up realizing that, you know what, Byron, this is one of the circumstances that if you had not put yourself in a position where you were low on money, if your addiction had led to you being irresponsible and your credit going bad, none of this would have happened. You didn't have any credit cards, and that was the fundamental issue. If you had had a credit card or some savings, basically you wouldn't have been stuck. So my sponsor and other things that I learned in addiction recovery is that you have to, if you look at what part that you play in the circumstance, is what I just did. I looked at what part I played in the circumstance, and I just said the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And that is this kind of situation, is that I had to accept the things that I cannot change, because at the end of the day, it's one of my highest ideals to be in a content state, to be resentment-free, and to be in the state of being happy, joyous, and free. And so if I'm angry, I'm discontent. And I cannot be in the state of happy, joyous, and free if I'm angry and agitated. So this provided me, here's the takeaway here. This provided me, this unfortunate circumstance provided me an opportunity for a teachable moment. This was a teachable moment where I made the decision that I was going to change my patterns of behavior, the way I responded to things, the way I responded to adversity and problems. And subsequently after that, because of this negative experience, I turned it into a positive experience. And I felt good that, I'm making progress. Normally, I would have just been mad for years. I would have been angry at the bank for years. So subsequently in the future, a couple weeks later, I had another circumstance where I was getting a tooth pulled, so I could get a root canal. No, I was getting a tooth pulled, and forget exactly what it was, but I basically incurred an extra $400 because somewhere there was administrative error, and so they didn't tell me that I needed to have pay $400. So because I couldn't pay the $400, when I go to get this implant, it's going to be $800 instead of $400. And I was very angry at that situation, and I was frustrated. But when I got home, I got back and I realized that this is a situation I cannot control. And what I made the decision right there, what the teachable moment and what the learning experience was going to be in this situation, is that today I'm choosing to not let that $400 keep me in a discontent state, an unhappy state, where I'm going to be angry for months. See, here's one of the takeaways here, is that when you let things go, if you accept and you forgive, okay, I'm not going to be burdened with that anger because of that $400. So, the other takeaway here is that, okay, yes, I'm justified in having that anger and resentment for that $400, but at the end of the day, that anger and that resentment provides no value to me. It doesn't help me. It leads me into a discontent state and unhappiness. Letting it go and forgiving allows me to put myself back in the state of being content, and therefore I can be happy, joyous, and free. It's $400. That $400 is not worth being miserable over. So, final conclusion is learning to see a teachable moment or a lesson can be applied to where you can grow as a person. In recovery, if you're talking the talk but not walking the walk, it doesn't work.